local while on the go. Read it on your smartphone or tablet. Download now by searching Bakersfield Californian in the Apple, Google, and Amazon app stores.
From the Dignity Health Studio at the Bakersfield Californian, this is Strictly Business, presented by the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. Sponsored in part by the law offices of Young Wooldridge, San Joaquin Community Hospital, Hydrogen Energy California, and Chevron. And now, here's your host, Cindy Pollard, President and CEO of the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
Happy New Year, and thank you so much for joining us for our very first show of Strictly Business. Each week, we're going to be bringing you a one-hour show that is all about business. We'll open the show with a glance at business news and analysis from around the nation, around the state, and right here locally, information that you'll find helpful. We'll then move into business roundup and spotlight segments where we'll be providing you tips, tools, and resources to help enhance your own professional development skills or to help your business flourish. And at the closing bell, we'll be taking a look at upcoming events, activities, meetings that are strictly business from the Chamber of Commerce and other organizations locally and from around the region. And because we want this show to be important to you and helpful to you, we're going to ask you to send us your story ideas, send us your feedback to a dedicated email address that we've set up for you, production@bakersfieldchamber.org. Today, we're going to begin a month-long series of New Year's resolutions for business. Generally, this time of the year, everyone takes a look at doing New Year's resolutions, but most of them are personal. So we're going to be taking a look at New Year's resolutions for your business. We'll start out by taking a look at strategic planning with Cheryl Barbich of Barbich Consulting, who will give us some very helpful information. Later in the show, attorney Chris Hamilton of the law offices of Young Wooldridge will join us to talk about the importance of protecting your personal holdings from your business or investment property. But first, let's take an opening look at news you can use. The IRS has published its 2014 standard mileage rates that they used to calculate the deductible costs of operating an automobile for business, charitable, medical, or moving purposes. The standard mileage rates for using your own vehicle for work purposes, down 0.5 cents from last year to 56 cents per mile, 23.5 cents per mile for medical or moving purposes, and 14 cents per mile for charitable service. Business, medical, and moving expense rate decreases, as I mentioned, by 0.5 cent from last year. And business mileage rate is based on fixed and variable costs of operating a vehicle. Medical and moving rates are based on variable costs. Taxpayers always have the option of calculating the actual costs rather than using these standard mileage rates. And if you are an employer, just a word to you, the Labor Commissioner doesn't consider an employee fully reimbursed for vehicle use unless the employee is paid at least the standard rates. So you'll want to make sure that you've done that. We do have some good news out of the California Air Resources Board. As you know, January 1st was the deadline to get fleets in compliance with the particulate matter filter standard under the truck and bus regulation. ARB, however, is providing additional time to complete compliance efforts and a little bit of flexibility for lower-use vehicles and to some that operate in certain areas of the state. ARB is telling truck owners that are compliant for 2013 that they will not be subject to enforcement action before July 1st. For more information or to see if your fleet is eligible for this extension, log on to the ARB website at arb.ca.gov. The Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce has released its annual voter scorecard for the first year of the 2013-2014 legislative session. Report provides the local business community a gauge to measure performance of their legislators, reflects legislators' attitudes towards private enterprise and fiscal responsibility. Throughout the first part of the session, the Chamber tracked and took action on 33 bills impacting both large and small business. 9 of those bills made it to either the Senate or the Assembly floor for a vote. And those 9 actually form the basis of the Chamber's scorecard. Senators Gene Fuller and Andy Vidak, as well as Assemblymember Shannon Grove, all scored 100% for the votes with the Chamber and with business. Assemblymember Rudy Salas scored 85.7% for his opposition on SB 7. Still a respectable vote, I might add. SB 7, as you may recall, prohibits charter cities from receiving or using state funds if they have a provision in place that authorizes a contractor to not comply with prevailing wage law on public works projects that are funded with local dollars. This new law is expected to cost the city of Bakersfield and surrounding cities millions of dollars in increased construction costs. More news from the IRS, this affecting restaurants and tipping. Effective January 1st, the IRS will classify automatic gratuities as service charges that are taxable as regular wages and subject to payroll tax withholding. This rule actually went into effect June of 2012, but the IRS postponed enforcement until January of this year to give restaurants a grace period to comply. The automatic gratuity charges for parties of 6, which you will sometimes see on your bill if you happen to dine out with a large party, may go away since the charge would create more paperwork and added costs for doing business. I believe we're going to be joined by local restaurant owner Terry Maxwell. He is the owner of TL Maxwell's. Terry, are you with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you so much for joining us. How is this?
Anytime, Cindy. I'm happy to be here.
Great, thank you. How is this new rule going to affect the restaurant industry?
Well, I think on the surface, you described it extremely well. Any restaurateur is going to have to make a decision as to how he's going to handle the tipping for parties. We have a banquet room, and obviously when we do a banquet, we have a standard tipping that we charge. I mean, it's on the bill. It's not something that's it's a choice for the patron. And we do have on our menu, I think it is 7 or 8 people. Parties larger than that we charge an automatic 18% gratuity, and everybody's going to have to make the decision. Do we want to increase our paperwork and have to explain to our workers exactly why more is being taken out of their check, or do we just go ahead and make recommendations to the patrons as to what you would like to see them give as a gratuity, but leave it up to them 100% so that you avoid that.
You know, I was talking to another restaurant owner who expressed concern that this might have a negative impact on the tips that their servers receive. Do you have that concern at all?
Oh, tremendously. It's really interesting, Cindy, because whenever you start varying your total dollars that you're charging a patron, say you do a 10% discount or a 2-for-1 or anything like that, by and large what will happen is the people who are tipping will tip off of the new amount, not off of what you would have charged them had they not gotten either the meal off or the 10% off. So a bill that should have been $50 is only $25, but they only give a tip off of the $25 rather than the $50. So I see the same kind of mindset kind of sinking in. Oh, well, gosh, they did a good job. I'll give them 15%. Well, it takes the setting up and the breaking down on large parties takes a lot longer. You're also taking that person away from the ability to serve other tables that might give better tips. And so that's the reason we do the mandatory, because we know that when you ask a server to take care of a large party, you don't want them to lose the ability to make the same kind of tips they would have had they taken four 2-tops, say, instead of an 8-top.
Wow.
It's just a protection. It's a protection for my servers because I care about my servers.
Right.
The IRS doesn't care about my servers, doesn't care about me, doesn't care about the extra paperwork. All they care about is how can they generate more money for them.
Are your servers expressing any concern to you, Terry?
No, Cindy. Servers servers don't look at the financial aspects of what's going on with the IRS and some of the laws that come down. It may be in other restaurants. Yeah, I'm a small restaurant.
Right.
It may be in other restaurants where there is more of a corporate presence that you're going to find servers being more in tune to what's going on with the IRS. So it's something that I'll sit down and discuss with my servers, and I probably will leave it up to them since I am small. I mean, the paperwork isn't going to be that much more, but the effect on the server might be a little bit greater because they're going to have more taken out of their check, which is not a lot of fun.
Right. Well, Terry, thank you so much for being with us this morning, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much, Lee. I appreciate it.
Have a great week. And speaking of restaurants, congratulations to Bakersfield's Wool Growers Restaurant for being recognized in the latest issue of Saveur magazine. The editors there called the food solid, satisfying, and lovable. It's just how we want this old world cuisine to be. And if you've not tried Wool Growers Basque Restaurant, you really are missing something. Those of us here in Bakersfield know all about it. If you're outside of Bakersfield, it's worth the travel here just to enjoy a meal there. It's going to cost you a little bit more to mail a first-class envelope beginning January 26th. That's right. The United States Postal Service is implementing a temporary price hike of 3 cents for a first-class stamp to 49 cents. Postcards are going to rise by 1 cent to 34, and bulk mail, periodicals, and package service rates are also going up. This higher rate will last no more than 2 years, says the Postal Service. They say it's going to allow them to recover roughly $2.8 billion of the $5 billion the Postal Service lost last year, and I'm imagining it will also help them pay for the television commercials that are running now. OSHA has released its top 10 frequently cited standards for safety violations in 2013. These workplace violations cost employers millions of dollars a year in fines, lost work days, workers' comp claims, and even lawsuits. OSHA publishes the list to alert employers so that they can find and fix potential hazards in the workplace. So this might be a good time for you to do a safety assessment in your own workplace to see whether or not you have any of these violations that could lead to preventable illness or injuries. Leading the list of safety citations is fall protection. This is actually under OSHA's standard for construction, but falls are not just limited to the construction industry. More than 8,000 citations were written last year around fall protection. Hazard communications is second on the list with more than 6,000 citations being written for hazard communication. OSHA says this is general industry. General industry is defined as any industry that is not agriculture, construction, or maritime. Also on the list, scaffolding general requirements, respiratory protection, electrical wiring methods, components, and equipment, powered industrial trucks. This is also for general industry. This would have to do with vehicular accidents, ladders, and the safe use, I should say, of ladder. I almost had a hazard over the weekend as I was stripping wallpaper, and I thought, my gosh, I'm glad I'm not a business. I might sue myself. Anyway, control of hazardous energy, electrical systems design requirements, and machines were also on that list. The Milken Institute has released its 2013 Best Performing Cities Index, and in the large cities category, Bakersfield and Delano has ranked number 19 out of 200. That is the highest ranking of any San Joaquin Valley city on the list. Madera Chowchilla came in at 57. That's up from 163 last year. Visalia and Porterville ranked 99, up from 168 a year ago. Fresno and Merced were 158 and 159, respectively, on the list. Milken says that these rankings measure job, wage, salary, and technology growth and the region's ability to sustain that growth. Milken also says that the rankings are a good indication of underlying structural performance of regional economics. They also note, for Bakersfield and Delano, with a location near major markets, goods transportation links, and competitively priced real estate, Bakersfield-Delano metro area is an attractive site for distribution centers. IKEA, Famous Footwear, Caterpillar, Target, Dollar General all have distribution centers in this area, and there are more on the way. Well, Governor Brown has added a couple of new arrows to his quiver when it comes to luring companies to expand in or move to the state, including a discretionary pot of money that his administration can use to sweeten deals. Beginning this month, Brown's administration will have $30 million in tax credits to award to companies or to either add or keep jobs in California. He is expected to have as much as $20 million annually to continue that economic growth. Beginning in July of this year, some California businesses and biotech companies will be able to write off some of the state's sales tax on the purchase of manufacturing and research as well as development equipment. As you know, California has long been criticized for being unfriendly to employers. New manufacturing jobs in California rose just 0.5% since 2010. That's compared to nearly 5% national growth. We're joined here in the studio by Cheryl Scott, who's Vice President of the Kern Economic Development Corporation. Good morning, Cheryl, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. What does all of this new money that Governor Brown has at his discretion, what does it mean for Kern County?
Well, of course, the ultimate impact is yet to be seen. But when it comes to Kern County, probably the thing that makes it the most difficult for us to bring businesses into Kern County is the simple fact that we are located in California. Businesses, site selectors across the country, when we go out to recruit, they're not excited about looking at the state of California. And our biggest challenge is convincing them that Kern County and Bakersfield are different. But maybe with this new plan the governor has, maybe he will get the attention of the site selectors across the country. And if we can get some meaningful incentives and recruit some businesses utilizing those incentives, then perhaps it will open the minds of some of the folks that we work with year-round, trying to convince them, give us a second look.
Right. What are some of the criticisms that you hear about California as you're out on the road?
Well, it's primarily the regulations, and I know you hear all of that at the Chamber of Commerce level as well. And when we're out recruiting, what we hear is ABC, anywhere but California. And it's just, and California is not very well represented either at these meetings that we attend, but that gives us a little bit of an edge because then we can stand up and say, well, Kern County is different, and here's why. But if we can start breaking down some of the negative images of California as a whole, then maybe that'll just help us get our foot in the door a little bit more.
Well, great. Thank you for all of the great work that you all do over at the Kern EDC.
Thank you.
And getting business to California and specifically to Kern County.
Absolutely.
Now, here's something from the absolutely outrageous file. I know when I first read about it, I thought, wow, imagine this. The U.S. Agriculture Department is requiring a Missouri-based magician to provide a disaster plan for his 3-pound bunny in order to keep the rabbit license. They are asking him to put together a plan that includes steps for disasters, steps that he would take in the instance of a flood, power failure, fire, ice storm, or a tornado. That's right, just to keep the prop that he uses in his magic axe. Well, as you could imagine, after media reports surfaced about the requirements, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack ordered a stay and reviewed the rules. So let's just hope that they back down a little bit from there. You've been watching Strictly Business. I'm Cindy Pollard with the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Hydrogen Energy California, a clean and reliable alternative energy solution, is proud to sponsor this program. Located in western Kern County, HECO will create thousands of construction jobs and at least 200 full-time positions. That translates into $52 million in annual labor income and at least $239 million in annual economic impact to Kern County. To learn more about HECO's commitment to the vitality of our business community, visit hydrogenenergycalifornia.com.
business exposure.
Connections with other businesses.
You want to make a difference in the community?
Credibility of membership.
Civic responsibility.
Business advocacy.
Leads generation.
Various benefits and services.
Seminars and workshops.
Participate on chamber committees.
And you can have it all with your membership in the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
From the Dignity Health Studio at the Bakersfield Californian, this is Strictly Business, presented by the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. Sponsored in part by the law offices of Young Wooldridge, San Joaquin Community Hospital, Hydrogen Energy California, and Chevron. And now, here's your host, Cindy Pollard, President and CEO of the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome back to Strictly Business. As you just heard, I am Cindy Pollard, and I am with the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. Every year, nearly half of all Americans will make a New Year's resolution. Most of those have to do with changes or improvements that we want to make in our personal lives. But what about our businesses? As business owners and managers, we want our businesses to thrive. And with a little bit of planning, you can be on your way. Join me as I welcome Cheryl Barbich of Barbich Consulting to discuss the importance of strategic planning for your business. Barbich Consulting provides strategic planning, management consulting, leadership development, and executive coaching services. Cheryl has been facilitating change throughout her career and has facilitated more than 30 strategic planning sessions for organizations large and small, as well as public and private. Welcome, Cheryl. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and Happy New Year, Cindy.
Thank you. Same to you. So, tell us, what is strategic planning and why is it so important to a business?
Well, it should be everyone's number one resolution this year or any year. Strategic planning is about envisioning and positioning. That is, envisioning the future of your organization, be it for-profit or not-for-profit, and positioning for improved profits or revenue growth or ultimately survival. If you don't have a plan, and everyone will agree that our world is just changing so rapidly.
Absolutely.
Not it used to be on a weekly or monthly, it's hourly, and it's broadcast around the world. And so anyone who believes that they can continue to do business as usual in that kind of an environment is making a big mistake.
Sadly mistaken.
A sad mistake. I mean, I think the biggest problem is we all get so involved in what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, managing personnel, what kind of new products we don't even think about what's the future. And if you don't think about it, your business might just go away. Its whole purpose might just disappear.
That's not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
So who participates in a strategic planning session?
Well, there are a number of ways to develop a strategic plan, and some do tops down, some do, they hire people to do it. But in my view, the most valuable is a participatory process, which as many people as possible participate. Now, having said that, not everybody can participate in the actual planning meeting, but to the extent that you can, you should involve all of your staff, whether you do it in focus groups, pre-meeting, or a survey, get their input, get some kind of a buy-in. But for the actual planning meeting, as many people as you can, but no more than 16. 12 is a good number or less, because that allows everyone to participate. And that's the magic. The magic occurs when everybody hears what everybody else is thinking. And even though you might have thought that you and I would have completely different viewpoints, as we listen to each other and understand where we're coming from on that, it's magic. There's a consensus that comes out of it, and then there's a buy-in to the plan.
Right. What type of guidance or direction comes out of a strategic plan?
Well, I think the main thing is talk about every other plan you have in a business needs to fall under the strategic plan. So once you've envisioned where you want to be in the future, then you can build your operation plan, you can build your personnel plan, your marketing plan, all of those additional plans, which we often look at as an annual planning or operational planning, should fall within that long-term strategic plan.
Okay. So after you've done your plan, what do you do to keep that from just becoming another binder on your shelf?
Well, there's actually a three-step process to it, in my view. Again, a three-step process to a successful plan. The first is preparing for it, and that is getting enough data and information so that you're not at the plan arguing about what the facts are. And you want to know, do we all agree, here are the numbers, these are the revenues that we had last year, these are the products that we have. So, and gathering, if you can, information from your customers,
Right.
Your clients, the people that enjoy, if you're a nonprofit, that are involved with you, gathering information from them, gathering data, financial information, industry specialization, what kind of focus. So that planning, and then deciding if you're going to have a facilitator or not. And there again, that's a big decision, but an uninterested or interested third party who can direct, facilitate the discussion leads to the best output. If you, as the chairman of or the CEO of the chamber, would try to lead a strategic planning for your staff or even for your board, what that does is it takes you out of the picture. Your input isn't available because you're now facilitating, or you take a bigger role and you direct it more than you should, in which case other people will hold back rather than
It shuts them
participate.
down.
Right. And then the actual planning meeting, you should try to go off-site if you can. 2 days is the best. It gives you time to break. There are natural breaks in the process, which we can talk about if we have time. And then finally, the third piece of a plan is to document what's been said and everything. In fact, I'm kind of mean when I facilitate. If you don't,
And yes, she is. I can vouch for that.
You know. If we say, if in the process we say that we want to do thus and so, then my rule is, then we got to say who's going to do that and when are they going to do that by.
Right.
And if no one steps forward and says, all right, I'll do it, then I say, well, obviously this isn't important enough to you, so I'll just mark it off. And they go, whoa, wait a
minute. We don't want to mark that. I'll do it.
I'll do it. So we document what the goals, what the objectives, what the actual action plan is going to be, and then be sure to share that with everyone that didn't get to participate in the actual planning meeting so that they know where we're going and they can participate. Because once you know, it focuses your actions as well, because everyone wants to be successful. So if you know where the organization's going, by golly, you're going to get on board and help make it happen.
Absolutely.
But you absolutely have to go back and revisit that plan. And it always front loads. It always front loads.
Right.
And that means we'll get it done by next week or 2 weeks or a month from now or 3 months. You can't, because...
Well, you have to be realistic. I mean, there's a lot of great excitement and energy that comes out of a planning session, but realistically, you cannot do everything.
Right. So you've got to go back, and I suggest at least quarterly, but monthly is a better idea.
Okay.
Because you will see that those front-loaded dates are going to have to slide, so you're going to need to, we missed that. When can we realistically get that done?
What type of prep work goes into getting ready for a strategic planning session? What do you ask the organizations to pull together?
Well, I like to have a little pre-planning survey as well of the participants, as well as any other employees or staff members that are not able to participate in the actual meeting. And you do some things, you want to get people thinking about it. So the survey might say things like, why do you work here? Or what do you think, why do you think people do business with us? And what you're trying to pull out is, what do you think the strengths of the organization are? You generally don't do more than 4 or 5 questions, because people will just stop and they won't fill it out and they won't. But then you compile that information so that everyone has that as part of their planning meeting packet, and they can see it's disguised. It doesn't, you don't name who said what. You mix it all up.
Right.
But you see where there's some consensus already.
Right.
And sometimes that surprises people. You get your financial information. Don't have reams and reams of numbers, but I like to use graphs and visuals so that you can get a picture of where you've been
Right.
in the past. You can see the trends, because the trends are the most important thing. Are we going like this, or are we going like this?
Right.
If it's expenses and it's going like this, that's not so bad. But if your revenue is going that way, we need a strategic plan really fast.
Really fast,
really
right.
fast.
We need to do something a
Exactly.
little bit differently
So whatever
here.
input you can, and particularly if there are any kinds of comparative things with other industries, other organizations, what's happening out there in your industry.
Right. Are there things that companies should avoid during a strategic planning session?
Well, I always set up and insist on a horseshoe setup.
Okay.
So that if there is any kind of a little combativeness, and I get in the middle of the horseshoe, and if I need to come right directly to you just to stop whatever might be going on, then I can do that. But generally that doesn't happen, but it gives me that opportunity to do that, and I like it because everyone can see everybody else as they're
Right.
speaking.
Right.
So that builds confidence as well. And the biggest thing is, and I know people don't like paper. I like paper. So I like flip charts, a couple of them.
Right.
And you give credibility to what everyone says. You make sure that you try to capture what every person has. And it may be an off-the-wall thing. And they'll see that when you start talking about and prioritizing things. They'll see that, well, maybe their idea wasn't so good. But on the other hand, there are times when, and I always say, look, no one has a lock on good ideas.
Right,
So
right.
even if you're thinking something, go ahead and say it, because it might be the best idea we've had, or it might trigger a brainstorm in
That's right.
someone else. So it's very important, and that's why that's why the importance of a third-party facilitator is, because you can give credibility to everyone and not be judgmental, but by the time you start talking about, okay, let's prioritize these, it falls into place. It is magic, after all.
Right, right. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Those are some great suggestions. I hope that you will take a look at strategic planning as one of your New Year's resolutions to help build your business. You're watching Strictly Business. I'm Cindy Pollard with the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Business exposure.
Connections with other businesses.
You want to make a difference in the community?
Credibility of membership.
Civic responsibility.
Business advocacy.
Leads generation.
Various benefits and services.
Seminars and workshops.
Participate on chamber committees.
And you can have it all with your membership in the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
This is an RC robotic claw.
A high school science teacher made me what I am today.
Our science teacher helped us build it.
Now I'm a geologist at Chevron, and I get to help science teachers.
It has 4 servo motors and a wireless microcontroller.
Over the last 3 years, we've put nearly $100 million into American education. That's thousands of kids learning to love science.
Isn't that cool?
That's pretty cool.
From the Dignity Health Studio at the Bakersfield Californian, this is Strictly Business, presented by the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. Sponsored in part by the law offices of Young Wooldridge, San Joaquin Community Hospital, Hydrogen Energy California, and Chevron. And now, here's your host, Cindy Pollard, President and CEO of the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us. This Spotlight on Business is brought to you by the law offices of Young Wooldridge. As a business owner, you work hard for your money, so it's only natural that you're going to want to protect your investment. Attorney Chris Hamilton from the law offices of Young Wooldridge joins us now with some advice on how businesses can protect the property and the money that's been acquired over time. Chris specializes in complex tax matters and holds a Master of Laws in Taxation with distinction from Loyola Law School. His other practice areas include wealth management, probate, and estate planning. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for having me.
Now, you and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that you said to me was that there is absolutely a first line of defense in a business that you recommend. What is that first line?
Absolutely. The point that I wanted to make was that in any business activity, you've got to have insurance. Certainly in the course of our discussions today, we'll discuss other means of protecting your assets, but it is certainly my belief and my recommendation that anybody engaging in activity for profit or operating a business absolutely have some sort of general liability policy. Specific recommendations would have to be based on understanding a particular business that somebody was engaged in.
Right.
But as a starting point, if you're operating a business, you've got to have some insurance.
Absolutely. When I had my public relations firm, I remember thinking, my gosh, sometimes I feel insurance rich and poor in every other way. I had the liability insurance, carried workers' comp insurance.
Absolutely.
I also had errors and omissions insurance since I was working with, law firms and other entities.
Absolutely. And that what you just spoke to really is part of the reason why a specific recommendation really requires an understanding of the business. But I simply wanted to make the point that, regardless of, forming an entity and all of these other means that we have of asset protection, not to exclude our friends who are, insurance providers, and not to overlook that very important piece of any business.
Right. Well, now, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see with business owners trying to protect their investments?
Well, certainly business owners in California face a number of challenges. It's tough to say precisely what the biggest challenge is, but certainly a great concern that many of my small business owners have is determining how to best protect their personal assets from their business activities. Put simply, when you operate a business, whether it's, actually having a business and an office that people come into, or whether it's as simple as owning real property and leasing it to someone else, your personal assets can be exposed to liability from that activity. And there are some simple steps that can be taken to avoid that.
Okay, so really how a business is organized for tax purposes has a big impact on how much of your personal assets are protected, is that?
Well, I would say that those are two important issues that having an entity can address. The first issue is to understand that there's a distinction between holding property and renting it as an individual, or having your own business that is simply owned by you in the sense that you haven't formed an entity. You may have obtained a fictitious business name, but at the end of the day, it's you, the sole proprietor, who owns all of the assets of the company, and you're operating as a sole proprietor. Or it's you who owns the real property that's being leased. That's really the situation that I'm talking about. In that situation, you don't have an entity.
Right.
And what that means is that, like I briefly indicated earlier, if you have business debts or there's liability that results from that business, because there's no distinction from your personal assets and your business assets, all of your assets are subject to those liabilities, or potentially subject to those liabilities.
Okay, well, let's take a look at some of those business entities. Sole proprietorship versus corporation. Difference.
This is probably the biggest initial distinction. Sole proprietorship is what I just described. It's when you are holding yourself out there as the person operating this business, and your personal assets can be subject to the debts, liabilities from that business. On the other hand, you have a corporation, which is probably the most commonly recognized form of entity, which is a situation where you have shareholders. The shareholders own the corporation. The shareholders typically choose directors who manage the corporate level aspects of the business, and they select officers. Those officers are the people who are going to be running your corporation, your chief executive, your chief operating officer. So the initial distinction is that, in a sole proprietor, as a sole proprietor, you own everything as an individual. In a corporation, you own the corporation by being a shareholder. The benefit that's afforded by that is that it truly is a separate entity. It's not just you and all of your assets out there in front of the world ready to have somebody make a claim against it. It's you as an owner of an entity that has its own assets. And so if a claim is made against that entity, assuming you operate it in accordance with the law, that liability can only go after the assets of that corporation.
Okay.
You've now created, in a sense, a wall between everything that you have and that's yours and is in your home,
Right.
and all of the assets of the business that are subject to that liability.
And that's an important distinction to make, to keep your personal property separate from the corporation.
Yes, absolutely. And that's really where I have clients that don't recognize that there's an issue. I have a lot of clients who have a business activity and then have purchased real property that they lease, and they simply lease it in their name.
Oh.
And they haven't created that entity wall to limit their liability.
That's where somebody could conceivably, quote unquote, lose everything if they should happen to be hit with a lawsuit.
That's the concern. If there was a lawsuit that went beyond the limits of the policy that you've obtained, the insurance policy that you've obtained, that your personal assets could be subject to, the liability that results from that lawsuit.
Two different types of corporations, S Corp and C Corp.
Yes. C corporation is the typical corporation that we think of. They are relatively complex in how they're managed. The distinction between a C corp and an S corp really relates to how they're taxed. S corps tend to be more suited towards small business owners because they're taxed less.
I was an S Corp when I had my PR firm.
C corporations are generally perceived to be taxed at the highest level. It's because they're taxed twice. When the corporation makes money, it pays tax at right about 35%, which is a relatively high rate. But then that money's within the corporation. In order for you, the owner, to get money out of that corporation, with the exception of whatever you may receive as salary, you've got to pay yourself a dividend. And so you get taxed again when you pay that dividend out. An S corporation avoids that. It essentially allows only one level of tax, and all of that tax flows through to the individual shareholders. And in a sense, without confusing matters, it's similar to a partnership in that all of the tax in an S corporation flows through to the individual. It achieves a better tax result for small businesses in most cases.
Okay. Partnerships. Individuals can also organize under a partnership. What types of partnerships are there, and how do these differ from corporations, upside, downside?
The general list of types of partnerships would be a general partnership, a limited partnership, and in certain instances, a limited liability partnership, which is somewhat confusing because the topic here is limited liability. A general partnership really offers no limited liability. A general partnership is the same as operating, in some sense, a sole proprietorship. Therefore, it's really not an entity that we use when we're considering asset protection. A limited partnership has limited partners and general partners, at least one of each. The limited partners in a limited partnership have limited liability. It gets even more interesting. The limited liability partnership is a partnership where its members or its partners have limited liability, but they're only available really to professionals. So there's only a select group of individuals who could use a limited liability partnership. For wealth management, asset protection purposes, we're really dealing with a limited partnership, sometimes called a family limited partnership.
Okay.
The primary distinction between a partnership and a corporation for tax purposes is that, similar to an S corporation, when you're in a partnership, the tax flows through to the individual partners. And what that means is the partnership itself isn't taxed on income. The partners are taxed on the income that the partnership made. I'd say the other primary distinction is that a partnership is very easy to form. There's less paperwork as compared to a corporation. However, the downside of a partnership, in some people's opinions, and it's certainly within the context of asset protection, is that if you have a limited partnership, there still has to be a general partner, and that general partner is still subject to liability, which means that if you want to protect your assets and use a limited partnership, you usually have to form two entities.
Okay.
You've got to form one entity to be your general partner, and then everybody else can be limited partners as an individual. Seems relatively complex, and it's not necessary given other forms that are available to you unless there's something particular about a partnership that is suited to your business.
So I think it's safe to say you should not try this at home without a trained professional. Chris, great information. Thanks for being with us today. If you'd like more information on today's topic, check out Chris Hamilton's blog at youngwooldridge.com/blog, or give him a call at the firm at 661-327-9661. You're listening or watching Strictly Business. I'm Cindy Pollard with the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Thanks, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you.
Business exposure.
Connections with other businesses.
You want to make a difference in the community?
Credibility of membership.
Civic responsibility.
Business advocacy.
Leads generation.
Various benefits and services.
Seminars and workshops.
Participate on chamber committees.
And you can have it all with your membership in the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
In today's world, you need help protecting what's important. Whether your family, your home, your business, or even your assets, Young Wooldridge is your trusted partner and advocate. For more than 70 years, the attorneys at Young Wooldridge have worked steadily, tirelessly, and faithfully, whether you're building your business or rebuilding your life. The law offices at Young Wooldridge. Our lights are always on, so when you need us, we'll be there for you.
From the Dignity Health Studio at the Bakersfield Californian, this is Strictly Business, presented by the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. Sponsored in part by the law offices of Young Wooldridge, San Joaquin Community Hospital, Hydrogen Energy California, and Chevron. And now, here's your host, Cindy Pollard, President and CEO of the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome back, and this is the closing bell. We've got upcoming events, activities, and opportunities that you won't want to miss. Granite Construction Company is requesting quotes from subcontractors and suppliers for a shoulder widening project they're working on in Mono County. The deadline for proposals is this Wednesday, January 8th at 2 p.m. If you'd like more information, contact Cliff Boren at 661-387-7712. Caltrop, one of California's largest construction services firms, is hosting an open house to discuss high-speed rail teaming opportunities that they're offering. That's going to take place this Thursday, January 9th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce, located at 1725 I Street. Caltrop is seeking contractors with expertise in a number of different areas. And joining us on the phone is Peter Owen, who's the Regional Director of Caltrop's Construction Management Division. Thanks for joining us, Peter. Can you tell me a little bit about the teaming opportunities that you are looking for?
Yes, Cindy. What we're really looking for is to be able to support a proposal that we're going to be giving to the California High-Speed Rail Authority. This is to help the authority in the oversight of the design-build contractors for the next leg, which is, I think, designated CSR 2 and 3. And that runs from just south of Fresno to just slightly short of Bakersfield. It's about 68 miles of what will eventually be the high-speed rail lines through that area. And what we're looking for is construction management people, and we've asked to try and get people that have admin support, quality control, verification and validation, oversight, safety and security oversight, project control support and risk management support, engineering design oversight, they're going to ask us to do reviews of the design build contractors designed for the system, and that'll be civil, structural, utilities type of work. And then construction management oversight, where we'll be looking for resident engineers, structure engineers, civil inspectors, utility inspectors, and public works inspectors. It really depends on how the design build contractor splits up that 68 miles.
Okay.
But given that you probably need at least a team every 10 miles or so, we're looking for people to support us in that area.
Okay.
And then there's environmental oversight, contracts and utility oversight, and public outreach.
Terrific. If you're interested in attending the Caltrop Open House and learning more about the teaming opportunities, please RSVP to Madison Chetwood at area code 949-337-4288, or you can email your intentions to mchetwood, that's CHETWOOD, at caltrop.com. Peter, thanks for joining us this morning, and I look forward to meeting you.
Thanks a lot.
Senator Andy Vidak and the California Highway Patrol Computer Crimes Investigation Unit are hosting a town hall meeting on identity theft and online predator prevention. That's going to take place this Friday, January 10th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at St. John Manor, located at 900 4th Street in Bakersfield. Senator Vidak is going to provide a legislative update, and then they'll be talking about identity theft prevention, social engineering, online predators, and then providing some resources for seniors. For more information, contact Daniel Medina at area code 559-585-7161. The Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce has a couple of upcoming events. For more on those, here's Lauren Smoot, the Chamber's Manager of Marketing and Communications over at the Chamber News Desk. Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning. Thanks, Cindy. So also this Friday, we have our first GRC, which is a Governmental Review Council meeting, happening Friday, 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. GRC is a chamber committee that meets weekly Friday mornings, every Friday morning, 7:30 to 8:30 at the chamber. This committee identifies, analyzes, and reviews governmental issues. And this Friday, they're going to feature a presentation on the Aqua Helio and Fremont Valley Preservation Project. Again, Friday, January 10th, 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. at the Chamber of Commerce. Also coming up at the Chamber is our annual labor and employment law update. We have these quarterly, and this month we're going to feature Dan Klingenberger, an attorney with Dowling Aaron Incorporated. Dan is going to help businesses start the year off right with an update on important laws and additions to law for 2014. So go ahead and tune in to us Tuesday, January 14th, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. This event is free for chamber members and $40 for non-members. And you can, of course, call the chamber to reserve your spot now. Also, in regards to labor and employment, we have 2014 employment posters available at the chamber. It is $32 plus tax, and we have them reserved for all businesses. Both state and federal employment notices is on this update, and so go ahead and call the chamber again, 327-4421, to go ahead and get your 2014 employment poster. And members are anxiously awaiting our annual gala, which is happening this month, the Chamber Annual Gala and Installation Dinner, Thursday, January 23rd at 5:30 p.m. at the Doubletree Hotel. This event is $75 per person, a table of 10 for $850. And we cannot release the comedian yet, but we will give you that hint. It is a comedian this year. Go ahead and RSVP for this event by calling the chamber or visiting our website at www.bakersfieldchamber.org. And last but not least, we do have this month a social media therapy update, Wednesday, January 29th from noon to 1 p.m. Go ahead and save the date for that. We will be returning with more information later this month. This event is $30 for chamber members and $60 for non-members, and again, at the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. Go ahead and throw it back to Cindy.
Thanks, Lauren. Keep California Beautiful has issued an RFP. They're requesting proposals to support their fundraising and board development initiative. They're looking to help maintain their current programs, and they're seeking new growth opportunities. They're looking for help in the Northern and Southern California area. Submission deadline is Friday, January 24th. For more information, Contact Ray Scott, Board President at pricedisposal@bak.rr.com. And last but not least, the Kern County Board of Trade is preparing the annual State of the County dinner taking place Wednesday, January 29th from 5 to 8 p.m. We're joined by Teresa Hitchcock, Chief Deputy Administrative Officer for the County of Kern. Tell us quickly, we only have just a couple of minutes, but where will this year's dinner be held and what can attendees anticipate?
This year's event will be at the Marriott downtown again. The venue's been fantastic for us, and they've always done a fabulous job at it. What attendees can expect is to hear a little bit about what's been going on with the county in the past year, kind of where your tax dollars have gone, basically. And then our chairman of the board's vision for where they'd like to see the county go in the next year. And our incoming chair this year is Leticia Perez, and we're very excited to have her. She's got some new and fresh ideas, and it'll be very exciting to see what her vision for the county is at that event.
It was a fantastic event last year. I attended. You guys always do a fantastic job. If someone wants to attend, how do they get tickets and what's the cost?
They can go to the Kern County Board of Trade at 2101 Oak Street. The cost is $50 per ticket. We have tables of 10 for $500. We have had quite a few reservations already, so I would, if you want a table, I would get my reservation now.
Great. Thanks, Teresa.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today for Strictly Business. If there is a topic that you'd like for us to cover, or you have a business-related event, activity, or opportunity, please email them to us at production@bakersfieldchamber.org. I'm Cindy Pollard with the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. We'll see you next Monday at 10 a.m. Hope you have a great week. And thanks again for joining us for our very first show of Strictly Business. Take care.